we're sitting here with Chris Hacker. Where are you coming from today? I know you have a race coming up this weekend, but where are you at today?
Today I'm in my apartment out in Mooresville, North Carolina. I've lived here for a little over a year now, and it's a nice little area. I enjoy it out here.
And it's race week, so what kind of goes on in a typical race week? What have you kind of done leading up to the preparation of Saturday's race?
So a lot of simulator time goes into it. Me personally, I'm not a huge believer in it. I mainly use it to be a lot more consistent throughout my lines and throttle and braking points. But a lot of time at the shop too, I like to turn wrenches myself. So the week before, I always go out to the shop. I install my own seat. I help them out as much as I can. They kind of every shop has their own little way of like doing thing, like a assembly line almost. But as long as I'm not stepping on any toes, I try to help as much as I can over there.
I mean, obviously you're pretty young in respect to the race car career, but it's my understanding you started this way back, even way before you could drive, way before you had a learner's permit, way before all that. So when did you first get into racing?
So I started racing when I was 8 years old, and it all started from there's a little quarter midget track out at the Indianapolis Fairgrounds by where I used to live, and my dad was always into racing, so we always watched it on TV. But I never really was like, this is something I want to do. But we went out there, and I saw a bunch of little kids driving, 6, 7, 8 year olds driving, and I was like, well, I can do that. So I walked up to my dad. I was like, when can I try this next? Because I did basketball, t-ball, all soccer, all that other stuff a normal kid does. But then I got into racing, and that's all she wrote after that. I was still doing it.
I have nephews now. I mean, basketball, t-ball, flag football, those are all kind of normal things. I don't think I want to see my nephews the next logical step being NASCAR or quarter midge racing down dirt tracks, but
Yeah, yeah.
each their own. And I mean, your parents and they were just let her rip. They just put you in there and let you go.
Yeah, so I was 7 at the time when that happened, and
Seven. Wow.
I tested the car, and I didn't wreck it or anything, and so they were like, "Okay, I guess we'll give it a try." So my birthday is in November, so on my 8th birthday, I got my first race car, and we were like sitting there, like, "Okay, well, where do we go?" And racing season is usually like March to November, somewhere around there. So, time activities, but there was a track out in Columbus, Ohio, that is an indoor facility. So we went out there throughout the winter season, and we raced out there a couple times. And then we went back to the fairgrounds in Indianapolis, started running there.
And me just kind of thinking logically here, I'm thinking given a group of 7-year-olds a bunch of race cars and throw them on a racetrack and see what happens. I mean, was it just pure chaos out there? Was it just accidents and crashes? I mean, what's going on? I mean,
So I'm not gonna lie, I don't have too much of a memory of me driving back then, but
from what, head injuries from all the crashes that were going
I
on with
mean,
7-year-olds
maybe
ramming into you?
there's some days I'd come home from school. My mom's like, "What'd you have for lunch?" And I was like, "Honestly, I couldn't even tell you." But me and my dad, we went out there last year to watch some races before we raced at Lucas Oil, and I was sitting there, and it was all the little kids driving again, and obviously no one really recognized me. I hope I look a lot different than what I did when I was 8 years old, but it was kind of impressive. They they kind of know what they're doing. There's a little mishaps like where you're like, okay, obviously this is like a little kid driving. That's something like a less mature person would do, or a pass someone would try to make that was not really the right idea. But as far as like them being able to run like a consistent line and stuff like that, I mean, they got it down to a T. As I feel like as long as you're like dedicated to it, then you'll be able to figure it out how to do it well.
And I know, obviously, some of our listeners and all that don't know your full story. Obviously, I'm equipped with it because I've known you for so long now. But a big part of the story and your journey is the brachial plexus injury that you kind of suffered at a young age.
Mhm.
And for people that don't know, I mean, I mean, you have mobility of your left arm; it's not full use. I mean, I'll let you kind of put it in your own words how what the condition you're living with.
Yeah, so for those who don't know, brachial plexus injury, I like to describe it as pretty much nerve damage. It affects your range of movement and your feeling in one of your arms. Mine happens to be in my left arm, which was caused from medical malpractice. And at first, I could only move my fingertips, and in between my birth and the age of like 6, I had 3 major surgeries, which consisted of nerve grafting and tendon transfers, which ultimately led to me having about like 60 to 70% range of movement. I can't lift my arm above my forehead, and I can't lift my wrist up all the way, and my elbow doesn't extend all the way, but there's a lot of people who can get this injury from birth, and there's a lot of people who can get this injury after birth with, like car accidents, motorcycle accidents. But, it's all I've known my whole life. So it's kind of like the quote unquote normal for me, which does make it a little bit easier. I don't go from having like two 100% functioning arms to having what I have now. So just being able to grow up my whole life and it being there my whole life, it's allowed me to overcome a lot of things. Just learning how to adapt to my environment, if that makes any sense.
For sure. And I mean, it doesn't sound like it held you back at all. I mean, clearly it hasn't. You're, competing at one of the highest levels possible as a race car driver, with one good arm and one arm that's somewhat functioning. But
Mm.
I mean, going back to the early life, because you already said, before you even started race car driving, you're already playing t-ball, basketball, baseball, and everything else. I mean, living with the condition, it never really held you back. You're able to always kind of just gung ho, let's go type of attitude.
So yeah, like there's definitely been struggles like growing up and stuff like that. I can't really recall stuff from like t-ball and things like that. I was really really young then, but
Yeah.
there's been a lot of struggles through racing. Especially when I first started running like the bigger cars when I was like about 13. Stock cars are a whole different thing than like kind of little go karts. So I got in there and there's a lot of bump and running going on. And I remember my dad, we would have to mount the seat. Well, first off, I was so small, so we had to pretty much put the seat on stilts. I pretty much had a car seat and the thing, but
Yeah, like
um,
broomsticks to push the pedals down,
bro,
and
we literally had like I think like 6-inch metal blocks bolted to the pedals so I could reach it. Honestly, it was insane. But um, we would have to mount the seat kind of like at an angle and over, so my right arm could have more range of movement. Because I don't know if you see a race seat, it wraps around your ribs and then it has the headrest, but there's also a part that wraps around your shoulders. And so if you're too far left, then you don't have, really range to do it. So we mount it to the right of the steering wheel a little bit. So I would have more range of movement with my right arm to steer.
yeah, wow,
And then also with like the bump and running going on the races, there was a time where my left arm fell off the wheel because my left arm doesn't really do anything. It just kind of holds on to it just for comfort because I don't like really want it sitting in my lap or anything. So
yeah,
it fell off and I couldn't get it back up onto the wheel just because it wasn't strong enough back then. So my dad got an extra window net and he mounted it from the roll cage to the seat. So if my arm did fall off, it would be just like maybe an inch away from the wheel. So it'd be a lot easier to swing it up and grab it again during the races. So there's been a lot of different scenarios that we have to overcome, and the next biggest one is going to be road courses on trying to figure out how to maintain the car while shifting and stuff like that. But I've done a lot of time on the simulator and it's been going well, but like I said earlier, the simulator is a lot different than real life stuff.
yeah.
So we'll play it by ear, but I'm sure it'll be all fine.
I mean, I'm just thinking myself driving to the grocery store. I'm 10 and 2, and I'm making turns. I'm going hand over hand. I mean, when you're going 150 miles an hour now? I mean, I know back then that you gauge up to it, but or
Mm.
I guess how fast does the car that you're driving on Saturday go, or with top speed out at?
Well, it depends on the track. Honestly, the tracks have the biggest
Say like a super speedway
Factors.
then.
Super
Let's put
Speedway. I mean, back in the day, they used to hit 200, but for insurance reasons, NASCAR doesn't allow that anymore. So we're hitting probably a good, 197, 198 in the draft.
for insurance
So
reasons.
yeah,
Very we toned it down. We're
yeah,
not going
yeah,
200. We're
yeah.
going
They're
198.
like, you
Yeah, I
can't
mean
go
it's very
200,
reasonable.
but 198 will that'll make it work. But yeah, so
And okay, so one night we're going 198 miles an hour. We got a left turn coming up. You're in. Let's just say we're in Daytona. You got a left turn coming up, and now you're about to swing it. I mean, what's the process there?
one of the things that we have in the race cars is a steering box, which you can change the steering ratio in. Um, so, for instance, if you have an 8-to-1 steering ratio, you don't have to turn the wheel as much for the wheels to turn,
Gotcha.
versus if you have a 16-to-1. So, I try to have them have a smaller steering ratio so there isn't as much wheel input into the car for it to turn.
Very
The
interesting.
only
Yeah.
downfall into that is that you feel less, I guess, if that makes sense. If you're like getting tight, that could be from you turning the wheel too much. And if you're getting loose, I mean, you don't feel it as quick in the steering wheel as you would with a higher steering ratio. Um, but instead of like driving like 10-2, I kind of drive like 11-4, if this makes sense. So when I do go into the corner, by the time I'm full lock, I'm like sitting like this. Because if I was 10-2, then
Yeah.
it wouldn't really work with the right arm and the left arm not really working and stuff. But um,
So and then let's go in. So obviously you keep excelling and getting in different leagues and winning races, but going back to when you're 7 to I think you said 13 and 14. I mean, when did people start realizing, wow, this kid's good?
um, I would say I really started making a name for myself when I was 13. I I mean, nowadays running late models at 13 is pretty normal, but 10 years ago, people were looking at my parents sideways for that. They were like, "Are you
And
really
they're
doing
probably
it?"
also thinking, this kid's got one arm. He's out here beating our kids left and
Yeah,
right. I mean, how,
well, that's the crazy part. I was raised. I think the next youngest driver I was racing with was maybe like 20. Like everybody else was mid 30s, mid 40s, and so that's when I really started making a name because
wow,
I when I first wanted to join the series, they were like, "You're too young," and so my mom sat down with me and we wrote this whole letter to the series director, and we're like, "Look, like this is my dream. Like back then I wanted to be in NASCAR by the time I was 18, and unfortunately it didn't happen. But I'm here now, so that's all that really matters. But
for sure. Yeah. And
we
how old are you now?
23 now, so just a
So
couple
not,
years late,
yeah,
but it's better late than never. So
consider that late, but
um but yeah, we wrote a whole spiel to the series director on like, please let me do this. Like it's my dream. I'm trying to get up the ranks as quick as I can. And luckily, he said yeah, and then I went out there and like I started spanking him. Man, I was running laps around him, and obviously there was a lot of learning experiences through that.
how did 30 and 40-year-olds take it when you were passing them by and getting the
I
checkered flag?
mean, so it was weird. It was really weird because like there was some of them that were like, I kind of grew up with like a old soul, old mindset, just because hanging with my dad so much, working on the race cars. So I kind of like knew how to talk to adults at a pretty young age, and so some of them were like friends with me and my dad. A lot of them
Yeah,
were like not. They were like just meh, 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 meh. But
for sure.
it was weird because I'd get out of the car for practice and we'd have like 2 hours for qualifying, and I would be sitting in the dirt waiting for qualifying to happen with little Matchbox cars, like playing with them. And so I'm sure like if I was a 40-year-old and I just got like outran by a 13-year-old playing with Matchbox cars, I would probably be a little bit mad at myself too. Uh, but it was great for me just being able to grow up around a lot of adults. I was able to mature at a pretty young age, and it helps me become a better driver in the long run.
Most definitely. I have a similar kind of upbringing. My dad kind of inundated me with people around the law and
Mm.
interning and call center jobs and all that. And kind of, well, obviously not race car driving, but coming out young, I was like 26, 27, and had my first verdict and like hit it big against an old head that was been doing it forever and was kept telling me the whole time, it's not how it works. You don't understand. Uh,
Yeah,
and being like the same, like, this, you got lucky, yada, yada. It's the same type of attitude.
you're like,
But
this is
then,
how it works now.
yeah, and the best thing to do to silence them is just keep winning and keep
Yeah.
excelling. And then when they're still in that league and you're now in the, you kept climbing your way up, they're probably still in that league now. And now you're,
Oh yeah, exactly.
racing in super speedways. How do you deal with losses now? Obviously, you had a great stretch of winning, and so you're at the top of your game. And now I'm sure each time you enter into a new league, though, you kind of have to start all over and get the respect. And you probably don't start off winning right away. So as you've kind of progressed and got better, I'm sure. Is there a way you deal with losses, or what's considered a loss really to you? Do you have a different gauge now? How do you kind of score it?
So when I first got into the NASCAR ranks, I wasn't really, I didn't really have an expectation for myself. The main goal was just going out there, finishing races, just learning. And I now feel like I have enough time under my belts to where it's not really learning anymore; it's competing. So, um, the goal isn't just to finish races anymore. It's to finish with the big guys and stuff like that. And luckily we had a good run at Richmond. I finished right behind the guy who won the Dash for Cash, and
Wow.
like if I was in there, I'd be sitting pretty well right now because that would have been a pretty good check to get. But um, it's just it's a loss nowadays would be just making a really really bad decision and taking the car out of the race and stuff like that. Or I mean, even like I get pretty bummed out myself. I don't finish like pretty much in the top 15. If I'm not close to that, then there's something I'm doing wrong. Like I need to go back into the drawing board and figure it out. And
About how many trucks on average are in a typical race you're participating in?
they take 36 trucks each race, and then 38 Xfinity cars. So if I'm not in that top 15 or right behind it, then I'm definitely there's some work that needs to be done. A really good day would be top five. I'd be head over heels if I got that. A good day would be top 10, and then I would say pretty average day would be top 15. So, but handling losses, man, it's weird because you can't let it really get to you that much. If you start letting it get to you, it's gonna eat you away, and you're not gonna be able to focus on the things that you need to focus on. But I'm a firm believer in like turning like anger into fuel. I guess if that makes sense.
I
Just
gotcha. Sure.
I like to I like to get mad at myself sometimes, and I even like the crew chiefs to sometimes get mad at me. Like if they see that I'm out there stepping on my own toes and stuff, like
I was going to ask you about that too. I mean, obviously, it's racing such an individual sport, but there is such a team dynamic.
mm,
I've been out there and around it where you have the crew chief, you have the pit crew, you have the race team behind them. You might even have race partners out there that are on the same team and underneath. I mean, how much of it do you think is then depending on the driver winning, and how much do you think it is also depends on the team being super in sync?
it's hard to say. I mean, obviously, like as a driver, you're not going to be where you're at without the team. So like part
For
of you
sure.
could say like 100% is the team, and then another part could say 100% is a driver. But it really it and at certain times it sways a lot. I guess if that makes sense. I mean, obviously the Monday through Thursday, that's 100% the team. They're getting the truck ready, stuff like that. Getting the car fast during practice and qualifying, that's 60% the team, 40% the driver, and then during the race, once the car is fast, I mean it's I'd say like 80% the driver, 20% the team, because
Yeah.
being out there, you're the one that's making the move, making the decision on where to go and how to pass these people, but you already have the best that you can underneath you. So there's minor adjustments you can make during the pit stops with track bar and stuff like that. But yeah, as far as the responsibility on how to make the car go fast, it really sways on what's going on.
For sure. Yeah. As you describe it too, it's making me think of just how the law works with cases and stuff. too with using an attorney as the race car driver. I mean, yeah, you're the one in the courtroom doing the verdicts and that, but when it's really the team, the paralegals, the pit crew, the you have your legal researchers, the team, the crew chief, everything's kind of independent on each other. Where in that initial stages, a lot of it's on the team to get the case in the right shape. And then it's on the attorney to really litigate it out, but the team's still supported. And then on race day or trial week, it's like, all right, now it's kind of on, you're in the hot seat now. It's kind of and the team's looking at you. They're looking like, hey, we did all that work. We got to this point. Now
Yeah.
it's time for you to carry us across and get
Yeah.
recognition for it.
They're like, don't mess it up now.
Exactly. We did everything. We followed the playbook. We got your car. You're
Oh
qualified top
man.
10. This is on you. This isn't on
Oh
us. This is on
man.
you.
That's
And then when you win, though, they're also like, "This is on us."
yeah, yeah,
This
exactly.
is
You're like, how does that flop?
no, but so let's talk about the pre-race, though. What's going. I mean, that's got to be a crazy amount of emotions and adrenaline and all sorts of things going on. What's kind of your routine from an hour before a race until the ignition's turning on? What's kind of the Chris Hacker playbook?
I mean, back to what I was saying about earlier about like if you think about stuff too much, it can eat you up. It kind of goes into this too. I'm a weird person. If I'm by myself just sitting there, I'm gonna start overthinking every little thing. Which you got to be focused. You gotta be stout and everything. But I like to have like my brother next to me, or my dad, or one of the crew members just like chatting it up. Like where are we going for dinner after this? Like because if I just start overthinking,
First things first.
yeah, yeah. First things first. Where's dinner?
Uber Eats.
Uber Eats. Oh man. But yeah, it's just I like to kind of just chat it up. Just have normal conversations, just so I don't get too deep in my head. And I did that stuff back in late models. Like with my dad, he used to be my own crew chief and my spotter too. And
Oh wow, that's cool.
during cautions, I would literally ask him. I'd be like, "Are we going to Applebee's or Buffalo Wild Wings tonight? Like where are we going?" Because I just for some reason, if I just sit there and start thinking about everything, then I just overthink too much, and so I need someone to just like kind of mellow me out and forget about the things that I don't even really need to be thinking about. And I'm like I start creating like fake scenarios in my head. So whole hour beforehand is kind of just relaxing, just chilling. Hydrating a lot, obviously. Making sure I use the restroom before I hop in the car. That's very important. But
Have you
one
ever had any emergencies where like, listen, guys, I got to pull over. It's bathroom time. We're gonna have to eat some
well,
seconds
at Daytona,
here.
I was I was stressing. I was stressing big at Daytona. I
Like, why did I have all that coffee?
Yeah, man. They threw the rain caution, and and I hopped
Got
out of the
water all around
car,
you.
huh?
So you got water all around you, and it's all you're thinking about.
Yeah, well, like I was sitting there, I took my helmet off, I sat on the car, and I was like, "I'll be right back, guys." And I just started running, and I couldn't find a porta potty on pit lane, so I had to like run through the fan zone with my suit on still, and
Imagine the guy that's in the urinal next to you, like, what the hell? That's
bro, literally, like my suit was still
33
like
car
all
out
the
there.
way up. Yeah, like I was
It's
like, oh my god.
like being at a Bucks
But
game, you look over and Tom Brady's taking a leak next to
literally, but yeah, that was a close call. My first race I had a close call too, but thankfully the lights ended up going out on the backstretch, so we had to stop the race, and I was able to get out and go to the restroom. But yeah, all the close calls I've
you.
got.
I'm sure those close calls have gotten in your head, like bathroom before you get in the car,
Oh,
bathroom before you get
always,
in the car.
always, always too. I'll go a little bit beforehand, and then I'll like even if I don't have to go, I'll hit the porta potty like real quick right before, just in case. Like if something comes up real quick, but
Do you
yeah,
ever have like do you ever have like the AirPods in, any music playing, any go to pump up songs or
yeah. That's another thing. Music kind of calms me down. There's a lot of racing's full of a bunch of like old heads, I guess you can call them. So there's a lot of people that have their own mindset on things. So I kind of pick and choose on when and where I'm listening to music because obviously I'm still building a name for myself, so I don't want people to get the wrong image of me just because I'm listening to music or something before a race.
Yeah,
But
I got.
um, but yeah, I listen to a lot of different stuff. Depending on how I feel going into the race, it could be just like some alternative music. But if I'm feeling like hyped up, good, obviously, some Drake or some Lil Wayne or something like
Some
that,
hip hop.
throw it on there. But
So I usually am right before trial, like 15 minutes before. I'll put the headphones in and put in some
hmm
early 2000s hip hop and
I
get the
mean,
psyche
I mean, you got to. I mean, I don't know how those people get prepared for things without listening to music. I mean, it's like
going.
going to the gym. Like you gotta have the AirPods in when you're going to the gym, and that's when you're supposed to be really hyped. So
Yeah, it just kind of cuts the overthinking out, lets you focus in on the
on the
main
on the
thoughts,
more important things, yeah,
and have the background music to
exactly,
cruise you through it.
exactly.
Um, so I want to get into some other just kind of personal stuff too, not really NASCAR related, but
Mm.
um, well, and some stuff too kind of correlates. I mean, growing up, were you a Mario Kart guy?
Uh, Not growing
Race?
up, but nowadays our videographer Chris Thompson, you know who he is, but he's got a Switch at home, and every weekend well, not every weekend, but most of the weekends when I'm not racing and he's not at the track, I'll go over and watch the races with him. But I always show up like 2 hours early, so we just Mario Kart it up all the time, and then we watch
So who's your go-to character? Who's the guy who's the fastest in your opinion on Mario Kart?
Bones. The little skeleton guy. I always choose him. I don't know if it's just because I like the edginess or whatever, but I always go for him. And luckily, like my favorite's not like Mario or Luigi or something because like usually you gotta like fight to get there first and click select, but no one really goes for Bones. So I can always take my time going over and finding him real quick.
um,
Do you have a favorite?
Me personally, I was always kind of a Luigi guy. I think it was
Luigi.
mainly because I'm the youngest of four, so I was always kind of picked over. I think the fan favorite in the Morgan household was Yoshi or Mario, so those would get picked up quick.
Yeah, I had to
And then
pick the Scattler.
exactly, and then I have a sister, so she was always obviously Princess Peach.
Oh yeah.
So then so Mario, Yoshi guy, and Princess Peach guy, and then I would take Luigi, and I did all right. Or if I wanted to be a real rebel, I'd go Wario.
Oh yeah, got
Uh,
hit the Wario every now and then.
right? Um, do you have a girlfriend or anything right now?
It's just my race cars, man.
Just a race
Just the
car.
race
So
cars. Yeah,
I was
gotta
I
keep
was
the
wondering because there's
race.
all these dating apps out there now, and people list their occupations on it. Are you on any of those that says Chris Hacker and underneath race car driver? Because I'm sure that would be a good
Uh,
way to kind of get started.
I don't have one right now. But when I did have one, I mean, I've had one throughout the years and stuff like that. But every time, like, I'll never put like NASCAR driver. It'll always just say race car driver, and like, I never have like,
Oh, okay, yeah, no,
yeah,
I
yeah,
won't put
like,
NASCAR driver. I will say
yeah,
race car.
like, I mean, like, where I'm
Don't
at.
say I'm a NASA astronaut. I just say astronaut, and I leave it
well,
at that.
like there's a lot of different racing where I'm at. I mean, there's all
That's
sorts
true.
of
Yeah,
stuff.
North Carolina, there's tons of different
So
circuits.
yeah, I mean, for all they know, I could just be some local track guy, and
Yeah.
so I never really post like the cars or anything or like on my little pictures that they look at, but yeah, I'll put race car driver. I mean, I don't want to necessarily lie.
I would too. Don't worry. Don't feel bad. You don't have to say that bad. I would put race car driver.
Yeah, I mean, like
I'd have it in neon lights blinking.
he said right here, right here. But I
uh,
mean, they'd find out eventually at some point, as long as they lasted. So
exactly right. They're gonna 1 week goes by. Hopefully, they're gonna see a
oh
one where Daytona. They're like, what?
man.
What about cars in real life? Are you a car guy? I know you said you said your girlfriend or just you and your cars. Is that the car you're driving, or do you have other cars that you mess
Yeah,
around with?
yeah, I'm a huge car guy in real life. I actually got out of the seat when I was like 17 because back then my parents were funding it. We just ran out of money, and then I didn't get back into it until I was like 20. And
Oh wow! So your
yeah,
goal was to be a NASCAR by 18. You stopped at 17, and then were able to come back after the goal and crush it.
yeah,
That's
yeah.
awesome.
So I mean, yeah, back then I really didn't even think. I kind of I wouldn't say I necessarily gave up on it, but I came to like a realization that it probably wouldn't happen. Um, and then luckily, because of people like you guys at Morgan and Morgan, I was able to get a settlement from my injury, and I just dumped it all trying to get back into racing. And
What was that kind of paradigm shift where I guess it was at age 20, was it just a kind of a now or never type approach is what kind of pushed you to do it? Or was it a long time coming and you just like, what was kind of that thought process there when you really took that
so
settlement money, which obviously is supposed to carry you from now until
yeah,
forever, and say, I'm going to take this risk and accelerate the career?
so there was a lot of long conversations with my parents because my dad, he's like, let's go racing. And then my mom was like, this will get you, what you need, like, in life. Like, you'll be able to retire early at some point, yada, yada, yada. So, like, there's a lot of, like, different sides of looking at it. But I was working with my dad at a collision shop. So, like, I was, fixing wrecked cars with him. And, there were days where, like, this is fun. Like, I enjoy this. But, there were also days where, like, this is not, like, what I was made to do. Like, I was made
Yeah.
to fix cars. So, there was a lot of back and forth conversation, and finally, I was able to convince them to where it would be a good idea, and we got 2 late model races, 2 ARCA races, and 1 truck race, and it was a week and a half before the truck race, which would have been the last one that I could have paid for, and we had no sponsors or anything. We were just like we were gonna run it blank and just put sponsor me on the quarter panel.
Yeah.
And I was like, it's this is probably gonna be the last thing I do. Like, I'm gonna go back home and go back to fixing wrecked cars, but at least I could
Wow.
say I did it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
At least I tried. So, but yeah, a week and a half before, we met some people. We ended up getting some sponsorship out of that, and it just slowly has been like rolling, like it just snowballing up since then. And um, it's kind of crazy to think back on because I was doing that stuff, and then I moved out here, which was still kind of going out on a limb. I moved here a little over a year ago, and we were still kind of just like back and forth on sponsors. How do we get in this race? How do we get in this race? And I mean, Morgan and Morgan and you guys are like the first time I've ever actually had like a set schedule on what I'm doing. Like I know when my next race is, and I know when the next race is after that, and I know that I'm racing in November, which is months and months away. And beforehand, it was, am I racing this weekend? Am I racing next weekend? How do we race next weekend? Who do we need to contact to race next week? Like so it's
Yeah.
all just been snowballing up, and you guys are like honestly probably the reason I'm still a race car driver. So I really
Well,
can't thank you guys enough for that.
well, yeah, it's been awesome to be a part of the store, and I feel like you keep surpassing the expectations. So we've been happy to keep it going. It started off as kind of a test campaign, and is now, yeah, like you said, exploded into a yearly calendar that we got stuff popping off all the time. It's been awesome, and it's been great getting down there and seeing it firsthand in the pit and all that type of stuff. So we've definitely been having fun with it. Um, and so what type of car do you drive in real life? What's the day-to-day driver?
I drive a 2015 Mustang EcoBoost. So it's a 4-cylinder with a little turbo on it, and it's honestly not that fast, but it does some pretty good donuts. So it doesn't really get up to speed, but it'll spin the tires a little bit. But once you hit about like 40 miles an hour, the power just drops big time. But it's a nice little daily driver. I've put a lot of miles on it. Driving up from Indiana down to North Carolina back in the day, and then
And what about people who say real drivers don't drive Fords? What do you have to say about that?
I just it gets me from point A to point B. Honestly, I just it gets me from point A to point B. But the manufacturer Ford wants to come in and give me a nice little ride, I'll take it. I'll represent Ford
Is
any day.
Ford the same? Is Ford the truck you're in, or is it a different brand of truck? Or
No, I
Infinity
run
car,
a Toyota Tundra right now, and
Toyota, and what about the Infinity?
Xfinity was a Mustang. Xfinity was actually a
Okay,
Mustang. Yeah, yeah.
there you go.
I forgot that was a
Some
Mustang.
familiarity there, huh?
Yeah, yeah. I was like, oh, I know what I'm doing. I've done this, but
Is the 2015 Mustang, is all that street legal above board,
yeah,
or if it's not, you don't have to answer.
no, it's all street legal. The only thing that is done to it is it just has like axle back exhaust. I mean, that's it. And I bought it like that, but the window tints might be a little dark. They might
No sound
They
system,
might be. No
no
sound
bump in the
system.
trunk.
No, I used to have a sub in there, but it kept draining my battery, and so I'd like wake up and I'd
Trade off,
call
yeah.
somebody to jump my car, and I was like, you know what? I was like, forget this. So I just took it out, but yeah, all street legal, so no worries about that. Worst part about it is it's an automatic, so
Yeah.
not a manual. Sadly, I get clowned on a little bit for that, but it's okay.
What about you get clowned on it for it not being manual? Because that goes back to what only drivers drive the stick.
Yeah, people are always like, "How are you gonna have a Mustang and it not be a manual?" And I'm like, "Bro, it's a 4 cylinder." I'm like, "It's not even like the big 5.0 or anything." I'm like, "Give me a break." I was like, "If you're gonna clown on me for anything, clown on me for like it being a 5.0." But
Yeah. If I had a manual, it'd be a statue because that thing wouldn't move. I wouldn't even know how to get out of the garage. I don't know.
you don't know how to drive manual?
I not without ruining the transmission along
Oh,
the way.
bro, I'm gonna have to teach you one day. We're gonna have to get that figured out. We're gonna have to
Yeah,
get
yeah, we'll be
back
like a
one day.
parking lot, a gold style, just stalling out and stopping and going.
Oh
Um,
man.
what about? I mean, obviously, obviously, that's kind of manuals, kind of old age and coming up, and obviously now the crazy future is the AI driverless cars. I saw Mercedes has one coming out where you just put your hands up and it stops at green or stops at red lights and goes at green lights and all that. What's your thoughts on these driverless cars? Do you ever see yourself partaking in that?
I mean, I'm not gonna lie. I'm a huge fan of Teslas. I
Okay,
Jack
they're
let
fast, that's for sure.
oh they dig. They are fast. They dig hard. But I've had some buddies let me drive theirs around. Jack actually let me drive his when we went out to dinner together, and
Oh, nice. Yeah, Jack Cook, an attorney at Morgan works over
yeah, yeah, and I don't know. It's weird. Like when he was like showing me like the self pilot or auto drive, whatever they call it. At first, I was like, "Are you sure? Like, are you
there.
sure?" I just let go, and he's like, "Yeah." And I let go, and it was driving straight, and like I've like let go of a wheel like in a normal car before, and like it goes straight because just
It's aligned properly.
yeah, yeah, as long as it's aligned properly. But we were coming up on a bend, and I was like, I like just looked over at him, and he's like, "Don't touch it." I was like, "Are you sure?" And he's like, "Don't touch it." And then it took the curve smoothly. Like it slewed down and everything by itself. And I was
Yeah.
like my mind was blown, honestly. But
Yeah, I've
but
had the same experience. There's a lawyer in our firm that has, and we do cases together all the time, and he'll drive to the trial, but he'll be like reading documents. And he's like,
at the
pay
same
attention.
time,
What are you doing
he's
over
like,
there?
"What
Like,
do I
it's
need to do?"
fine. We're good to go. I'm like,
He's
no,
like,
we're
"Don't
not.
worry
Like,
about it."
I
But
mean, that could be the solution to your road courses. Just get Tesla to sponsor, and that way
I
you guys
mean, yeah,
control the terms
I
for
don't
you.
know how NASCAR would really feel about that one, but
They say AI is replacing jobs. It might be another one that is. The next thing you know, it's just 30 cars, no drivers out there. People out.
they have that. Have you seen that? They ran
They have Tesla racing type of stuff, like
not
actual cars,
Tesla. They kind of look
like
like Indy cars. Old,
life size remote control cars from back in the day, like remote, like people just
well,
control
they're completely AI. Like they did an
them.
expedition race last year at Indy, and they're full size. Like they look like Indy cars, but they're not Indy cars. Full size, and each team has their own group of like engineers, and they program the car to be, more conservative or aggressive.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna
And
say. Is there crashes involved in them?
yeah, yeah, there's
Wow.
crashes,
But even
but
in AI, they're still ripping metal and crashing.
yeah, so but I mean, it's just crazy to think that like there's these. I mean, I'm sure they're kids. I'm sure they all can't. They got to be fresh out of college. You know what I mean? They can't be crazy like old. But I mean, it's crazy that these kids like softwaring a car to just drive how they want it to. And like and the crazy part about it is like the lines that they have to run. Like when you're a race car driver, you got to be as consistent as you can and hit your marks as much as you can. But if you're a computer, I mean, you can
Yeah.
literally do it every lap, no problem. And so the racing there is crazy. They don't really like spread out or anything, but yeah, they started doing that stuff like last year.
How fast? I mean, I'm sure that they don't have to worry about the bodily harm and the injuries associated. Are those things running faster than 200 miles an hour?
I doubt it. They. I mean, no, I highly doubt it. They're like a. They look like Indy cars, but they're less powered. I would assume they were probably going like 140 into the corners. But I'm sure at some point, they'll be hauling for sure. I wouldn't be surprised, and I wouldn't be surprised if I don't know if you know about the land speed records, like on the salt flats.
Yeah.
Usually
Uh,
they're man driven and stuff like that, but I mean, heck, they've hit in like at least like 400 and something miles an hour. Like they gotta have like inverted wings to like just keep them onto the ground, like instead of like just taking off like a
Yeah, I
plane.
was gonna
But
say.
I wouldn't be surprised if they started doing stuff like that with those. Just controlling them
Yeah,
remotely, so I mean they can just go as fast as they can without
faster. Yeah,
having to worry
letting
about somebody get hurt and stuff. So,
crash out. Jeez.
but yeah,
Uh,
AI driving is insane. Honestly, it's a whole. I'm young, but it blows my mind. So.
what's like the gnarliest crash you've been a part of in the professional world?
um. I haven't been in any really bad ones
Yeah,
in the
knock
NASCAR
on wood.
series. I mean, there's been a couple, just good hits, but the craziest one I've been in at Anderson, there's an opening going into turn 3 to get into the track, and there's an opening coming out of turn 4 to get out of the track.
Okay.
And at that opening, it's like curved, and they just have like tires lined up, so it's like it cushions the impact if you were to hit it. And me and this guy, we were racing hard back and forth, and they started wrecking in between 3 and 4, and me and him both locked up the brakes, and his car like kind of slid in front of mine, and I was on his bumper, and he went nose first into the barrier, and I like just went right under him, and it ripped the carburetor off the motor. It ripped like the whole body off, like roll cage like bent in, and like I was 13 at the time, and
13.
yeah, and I like my dad came over the radio. He was like, "You fine? You fine?" And
This is when you're out there with like the 30 and 40-year-olds.
yeah, yeah,
Probably, of course, is who let the 13-year-old out
yeah.
here? The commissioner's over there like looking around like,
Well,
uh-oh.
like years and years and years before that happened, some guy his throttle stuck and he went into it and he actually like passed away because like the motor went into his lap. And so like
Holy shit.
they like right when it happened, like they put tarps up because like people were trying to take pictures, and like my mom never wore a headset, but she started
Oh my.
freaking out. And
I've seen your mom at the race. She stays
yeah,
anxious
and that's
throughout
just when
the
I'm
race.
racing. I mean, like in that wreck, bro, I could not imagine. I couldn't imagine.
Yeah,
She,
he's
she
exactly.
had
That's
to
what I
have been a
mean.
mess. But yeah, I come back over the radio. Like I'm kind of like just looking like downward, I guess, like at my steering wheel. I come back over the radio. I was like, yeah, I'm fine. Then I look up and I just see like his left rear tire like 5 inches away from my face, and like there's like fuel like dribbling out like right onto my suit and stuff, and like at that point, I started freaking out. I was like, yo, get me out of
Yeah,
here. I was like, I do not like this situation at all.
Final Destination type
That's what
stuff.
I'm saying, bro. I was like, get me out of this thing ASAP. And the worst part about it was the track guys, the the turns are like banked, so they're kind of slanted, but the track guys weren't coming up to my window. They were like staying like 5-10 feet away, and they're like, "Come on, come on, come on!" I was like, "There's a reason you're not walking up here right now,
Yeah.
and I don't like that." And so we were friends with the guy who sold parts there. His son was actually my crew chief, and his name is Jack Neal, and the younger guy's name is Scott Neal. He was actually at IRP. I think Jack Cook met him. Anyways, Jack Neal ended up coming up and pulling me out of the car and stuff, and I was a little shook up with it, but we built the car back up and we went out there, and the next weekend I won my first late model race. So
Next weekend.
yeah, the next weekend we were
Talk about
we were,
overcoming adversity. You
yeah,
got
yeah, we were putting on the decals at the track because like it was after school.
and the
After
commissioner was like, "Yeah, that's right. That's that 13." The week before, he's like, his job's up for the next thing you know. He's like, yeah, I told you I
yeah,
made my bet.
but yeah, I would say that was the craziest one I've been in. Just having the car like on top of me and like his tire being right by my face and stuff.
Yeah, that sounds
It was
somewhat
an
intense.
experience.
But to have a car on top of me and a tire next to my face, it was probably the most intense one.
Oh man.
Carburetor ripped out, and so obviously you're fast on the track. Are you fast off the track? Did you do track in high school? You got any or what's the feet speed like?
Feet speed is on turtle mode.
Turtle mode,
Turtle
slow.
mode, bro. I am slow.
What else is on turtle mode? What else is Chris Hacker the slowest at?
I don't know, honestly.
You get ready quick? Are you on
Oh, I
time
get ready
usually?
quick. I I can wake up, shower, clothes,
You're out the door.
teeth brushed out the door in less than like 15 minutes. Easy, like
Pit crew's gotta love that time.
oh, bro. Yeah, always. And I'm never late, stuff like that. I would say just running on my feet, big slow. Um, I don't know why. I just need like a barking dog to chase me in order for me to run fast or something like that. Like I need my life to be in danger for me to be able to run fast. But yeah, me and
If
a couple of my buddies, we lined up and we did a little race like to Cone one day, and I dead last, dead last, and I was
like, if
like,
I had my car, y'all would be
yeah,
smoking right
I was
now.
like, let me go get the race car real quick. Let's redo this. But yeah, I don't know. Just I'm super slow on my feet. But when I DoorDash though, I'm super fast with that. They get their
You
food way early when I be door dashing.
you're on the DoorDash, you're actually out there sometimes skirting around and dropping it off?
Oh yeah.
That's
I
awesome.
DoorDash all the time.
Professional race car driver passing some time and
Yeah,
dropping.
I need to start wearing my Morgan and Morgan suit and my helmet when I'm out doing it. Just roll the windows
Yeah,
down, look over at the stoplight. People would be
we'll live stream
confused.
it. They're like, "Your order will be here at 8:10 next." Wait, it's here at 8:03 now? You got
Oh
your picture out
man,
there running it up and dropping it off and running and ringing the doorbell and running back.
exactly.
Obviously, it's nice to have the pit crew to do all the work and change the tires and all that. Is there a time when you wish you had them outside of the racetrack to kind of take care of a bunch of stuff for you? And if so, what stuff would you have your pit crew kind of knock out?
Well, so like I have Nate Blaisdell and like
Yeah,
Joey
you're
and stuff. You know, they help me a lot on the outside points of view stuff. Um,
nice.
you know, the pit crew just always usually handles stuff at the track, but just trying to figure out, just how to prepare and what teams to work with and stuff like that. They help me a lot on that. Getting film to study it for the next race, just all sorts of stuff. I don't. I It's not really much that I've like sat down and been like, man, I like really need help on this right now that they already don't do. So,
You got yeah, that's nice.
but yeah, they're usually really good about taking care of me on what I need and stuff like that. But sometimes cooking food, I got way too used to my mom cooking food, and then once I moved out here, I like just look at my stove, and that's about it. I just always like
Yeah,
microwave food, but
Be nice to have the
Yeah,
pit crew in there. You have all four of them there. You got one guy on the pasta, one guy on the chicken, one guy
oh,
on the zipping around.
that would be amazing. There's nothing I want more than that, especially just all suited up too.
So before we let you go, we're going to do a segment here brought brought to us by syndicase.com. This segment's called What's Your Case Worth? Syndicase.com is a lawyer to lawyer referral network where if you're a lawyer, you can send a case and make easy referral money. So, Chris, kind of how this is works. I'm going to give you this is all real life situations that have happened. They've been litigated, they've been in a court, and there's been a result, and money has either most of these money has been awarded. So I'm going to give you the scenario, and then I want you to tell me what you think that case would be worth if you were the person involved.
Okay.
Following these rules?
Okay, yeah, I got the rules.
So this one's called The Happiest Song on Earth. This happened in California when a small world ride, the ride broke down for half an hour and he was stuck on the ride. While he was stuck on the ride, the song continued to play for 30 minutes straight on loop. He claims this condition aggravated his blood pressure and he suffered from other things, including emotional distress as a result of the Small World theme song playing nonstop for over 30 minutes. Disney did provide assistance in the interim by getting him unstuck and getting him off the ride, but the lawsuit did go to court and there was a verdict returned. So, what would you want if you were that man stuck on It's a Small World for half an hour? What do you think that case is worth?
I mean, off the top of my head, I mean, I don't have any blood pressure problems. My dad does, so I've seen my dad. I've seen some things. Take my dad off pretty quickly. But I mean, I would say like he probably got like maybe like 15K from it.
$8,000.
Eight
So
thousand? That's still
8,000,
good. That's still good, honestly.
right? I think that's
That's
fantastic.
Yeah, bro. Just for the song, I was just thinking because Disney's so big
15K. We
that,
got that guy's like that's what I'm saying.
bro. I just all these big companies, bro. You never know. You never know. They dish it out.
Well, Chris, no, I really appreciate your time today. I know you got a lot going on. Before we take off, any parting words or advice to anyone listening uh, before we let you go here?
I always just say keep on digging. So just always keep on digging after what you need to do. But I mean, I appreciate you guys having me. This was fun, especially the ending part where I was guessing guessing the dollar amounts on that stuff. It threw me off a bunch, but no, I appreciate you guys having me, and I appreciate talking to you, Dan. It was fun.
All right, man. I'll see you later. Okay.